Have you ever been surprised at the funeral? I was. Yesterday I was at the funeral. I would like to say again, but when I think about it, it was almost a year ago since I went to the previous funeral. This time, a wife of my clients has died, and they asked me to attend to her funeral. And of course, we went, my husband and I. I had only met her a few times, not really discussed with her in person, but we talked on the phone a couple of times. But never in this world I would have said to anyone that I knew her or knew anything but about her. That she was a mother, that she was a wife, she was an entrepreneur, she was fond of many things. But now she passed away after long illness. She wasn't very old, she was younger than we are, so under 50. So she left well before her time. But what struck me, I don't say as odd, but something not as usual yesterday. Well, first of all, we went to the church. We had to hurry because we had to travel almost 2 hours with the public transport to get to the church. So we were in this kind of a hurrying mood when we got there. And fortunately, we were 15 minutes early before the ceremony starts. And we looked around and we saw nobody. And then I said to my husband that, okay, it's a church, we can go sit inside and wait until the rest of the people come. We had no idea if there was going to be hundreds of people or just a handful. So we went inside. And there was the first surprise. There was, if I should say, from 100 to 150 people in the church already, sitting silently. And it was 15 minutes before the ceremony starts. So we tried to be as quiet as we can and went to the back row and sat down. And people were very quiet. And when the ceremony started, almost everybody cried. You know, usually when you are in a funeral, people try to maintain calm and somehow put together, and they don't want to cry out their pain or sob or even blow their nose, which is of course the normal reaction after you have cried. But everybody cried silently, but they cried. In front of me sat this young woman with 2 children. They would have been something about 10 years old, boy and a girl. And the woman was like very upset. I can see she had this, like, you know, when you have been crying, you have these red circles around your eyes, and she tried to be calm for her children. So because they were, of course, thinking about what is this, and they didn't understand. They were only 10 years old. So she tried to maintain calm, but she was really struggling and crying and then just trying to stay calm. And I know that she didn't fully understand what was spoken because they weren't from this country. And it was just one example that I saw. It took about an hour, the ceremony. And we, of course, first a priest would talk and then people would go and lay down their flowers and say a few words. And of course it took time because there were very many people. But when they went down to put down their flowers, they were genuinely crying. They couldn't hold on anymore. And that's something that I haven't seen in funeral ever. That all those people that came all those 100 people or 150, they were all like shook to the core. And I just thought that to have this kind of reaction with this many people, she must have been an extraordinary woman. And her death was not surprise to anyone. Even I knew that she had this illness that was in recession and then came back, and was in recession and then came back, that eventually it's very likely that she is going to pass away because of that illness. And for me personally, the thing that made me cry was, of course, the odd fact that when you are surrounded by people who cry, you tend to cry also, but not in a way that they cried, because I didn't mourn her the same way, because I didn't know her. But that's odd, why it's contagious, why you start to cry, or when you start to feel bad if somebody else cries. I don't know. If you know, comment down below why that happens. Well, the other thing, or the thing that I knew that I cannot start thinking about, because then I start crying, and for totally different reason, was the fact that she left behind a daughter almost the same age that my youngest is. And the mere thought that I would have to leave my children behind is excruciating. That's something that is unbearable for me. I cannot really get it in my head, because it's not even sorrow, it's not mourning, it's a feeling of devastation. This kind of a total feeling that I get from the idea. And to think about her and her last year, last week, last days, when she knew that she is going to lose this battle and she has to go away and leave her daughter behind, must have been something that is very hard to even imagine. The agony that she must have felt. And that's the thing that, of course, I mourn, that I feel bad, that I feel sorry for her for that. I know that, of course, she has a very good father and people around her, and that's very good, but they will not take a place of a mother. And of course, if I think about my own life and, for example, my husband's life, I know that she was very fortunate to have that kind of mother for so many years, to have a loving home, and to be able to have that basic security, growing up with both parents who are very attentive to her. But many kind of things come to your mind when you are sitting in the funeral and somehow thinking about the atmosphere. But after the ceremony in the church, we went to the next building to have a small meal and cake and coffee, like people used to have in a funeral. And it was very silent in there also. There was first in this big line, and everybody, affected condolences to the immediate family, and then we sat down and it was quite quiet. I went down to sit with her co-workers that were there, I think some 20 of them, so very many came, and managed to talk something with them. They were not so shaken as the rest of the people, but there were only few speeches, and they were very small, and otherwise people just sat and ate and had their coffee and left and watched the photographs. There was a big screen that played all the time, over and over, her photographs. She took photographs herself, and obviously she was a person that was in this side of the lens very many times, and liked to have her photographs taken. And it was, of course, nice to see that. One thing that struck me from all those photographs was that she was wearing a cross in every picture. Not the same cross, different kind of cross, but every picture she had a necklace with the cross in it. So I said it to my husband, and he of course said that in these circumstances it's understandable, because she was ill so many years. So people used to, in that kind of situation, turn to God. It's logical and it's understandable. But that also, that following event was very silent. Of course, the level of grief was the most cruel with the immediate family, and the daughter. When I heard her, I didn't see her, but heard her moan when they took her coffin away, and it was really moving. But then the event went, and we went home and were exhausted about the day. But that I can say that I have never been in this kind of funeral with the person that was so loved than she was, and I don't usually feel like an imposter, but I somehow felt like an imposter when I went there. That I didn't know her, but I went there just because they wanted me to be there, just to say my final farewells, and of course try to be there for them, for the immediate family. If I think about the funerals that I have been to, there has been like old people buried, and there has been very many people who are there just to be seen. I have seen people that are very bitter, and they don't know, did they love or hate the deceased, and it's very mixed. Somebody is laughing this weird kind of way, and people are acting really strangely. But in this funeral, people were acting, or they had this genuine feeling, and they were acting accordingly. And I've never ever been to a funeral that the deceased was obviously so loved as she was. And that's a beautiful memory, even for me that didn't really know her. Have you been in this kind of funerals? Please comment down below. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you soon. Goodbye. There was something odd in the church. I thought it when we sat in there. It was this old building. I don't know about how many hundreds of years. It was one of the oldest churches in the country, somewhere from Middle Ages, I think, if I think about the art. But it didn't feel like a church. I usually get this kind of a notion about, I don't know if it's the fact that God is listening, and Holy Ghost, this kind of spiritual feeling when I go to church, whatever church it is. But in this church, I did not feel that. If I had to christen a baby or get married, or I won't be like buried in that church, I can assure you. I had the feeling that something bad had happened there. It's not a good place. It's not a good church. I don't know what, but something has happened. and it's not right. And when we left there in the end of the evening, we had the coffee and a cake in another building, and then we started to walk home. And my husband said that he had a pain in his throat all the time that we were in the church, and now it's gone when we left there. And that's odd. That's not a coincidence. It's something that we both knew, and he said the same thing, that I don't want to go to that church never again. So I don't know what this is, but we have this kind of a feeling somehow. He has on his behalf and I have on mine, and we just know that something is bad, someplace is bad. And I'm very grateful that I have my husband now who senses the same things, because previously people have thought me of a lunatic if I say anything like remotely to that direction.